Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel Summarized AI. As part of this video, we are going to talk about init, iterator, and next we have in Python. So init is nothing but it's a constructor we have in Python which allow us to initialize objects attributes when it is created. Iterators allow us to traverse through all the elements of a collection, like list, tuple, or custom objects one by one. And next is nothing but it returns the next items in the sequence. I know it looks complex and not easy to understand. So let's go ahead and start the implementation, and let's try to understand how it works, what the logic behind these three things. Okay. So before we go, let's go and create a class. Okay. Let's create a class and say my numbers. Okay. And after creating this class, create a function which says underscore underscore init, okay, underscore underscore, and then again you can write self, and I'm going to pass two parameters as start and end. Okay. Now here I'm gonna say self dot start. Don't worry, I will explain each and everything what we are doing here. Start, and again I'm going to say self dot end equals to end. Okay. Now let's create an object. Nums equals to my numbers and then pass the start and end. So I'm passing 1 comma 5. Now let's try to understand this. And before understand, let's run this particular code once. So I can say print and then say inside init. Okay, let's execute. Now if I execute this particular code, you would be seeing the init got called, but we did not directly wrote something like init and then bracket and then pass the different parameter or whatever it is asking, three parameters. Okay. So the main purpose of the init is a constructor. Okay. So whenever we are going to create an object, and if we have written this init function in our class, so as soon as we create the object, this particular init will get called. Okay. Now, when the init gets called or when we declare init, the first parameter is always a self. Self is nothing but it represents to the current object of the class. Okay, and it will always be there. If you are going to write something like this, okay, then also self will be there by default. Okay, so now we have declared the self here. Now, apart from this, I'm passing two different parameters, start and end. Okay. Now, while passing an argument, we don't have to pass anything here, which says as a self, because this is um, inbuilt or default given by Python. So first argument is going to be a self, and second it is going to be the arguments what we are going to pass, which is start and end. Okay. Now, here what we are doing is we got these argument as inside this particular constructor, but self.start will make them as a class label start and end variable. Okay. So just to convert or initialize class level variables, we are saying self.start, then start. Okay. Because if we are going to create one more function here, okay, for example, def, and if I say test. Okay, I'm creating a text function, and inside that, if I print the value of self.end, okay, and if I, oh, sorry, my fault, not the curly braces, it should be colon. Okay, now if I try to run this particular code, okay, of self.end, and if I pass self here, which is nothing but the object variable, the sorry, class level variable. So if I execute this code, you can see it is saying inside init, but when I call this particular function here, test, okay, and it should be nums.test because it's a function inside this particular class. So as soon as it will call this particular function, it will print the value. Okay, let's see that. So we got the value as 5. Why? Because as we discussed, it's the class label variable, which is for this particular object, and we are able to get the value. So similar to this, if I create one more object, okay, and if I say nums underscore one, and here if I'm passing 2 comma 3, okay, now if I call this function here, now because for this particular variable, this value is 2 or 3, okay, so respectively it will return the 3 value here, because for this particular object we are passing 2 and 3, so that's where self.end is 3 here. So this is all about like how init works and what is self. Now let's move forward. Now we have one thing here which is iterator, okay, and if we write, we can write this way, and again if it is having a self object or the variable, you can say. Okay. Now, if I say self dot current, which means I'm creating a variable with the name of self dot current, it will be a current variable, which is a class label. Okay. Now here I'm saying whenever I say self dot current, it is nothing but self dot start. So we created a new variable here. Okay. And here again, I'm returning the self. Okay. Now, what will happen? Let me give the statement here inside iterator. Okay. Now what will happen when I say for num in nums? Okay. And if I print something here inside loop, okay. And if I try to run this particular code will block. Okay. For num in nums. So iterator returns non-iterated of type my numbers. Okay. Which means, which means let me correct the spelling first. There is a typo. Let me correct it here. So now it is saying return non-iterator. Okay, so this is not iterator. To correct this particular thing, we have the next keyword, okay, which will allow this particular iterator to get iterate. Okay, so what it does, for will initialize the iterator here. Okay, so the job of for is for every n in numbers, it will call iterator. Okay, like nums dot iterator here. Now underscore underscore iter underscore underscore will return the iterator object always. It will return the iterator object to here, and then it will run the loop, and for every loop it will call the next by default. So if I say def underscore underscore next underscore underscore, okay, and here if I say self, okay, then this, and if I print something like this inside next, okay. Now if I try to run this, let's see what happens. See, it is going in loop because what it is happening, we have started an iterator, but we did not write any condition to loop this iterator. Okay, because when you call this particular line for num in nums, then it will call this iterator. Okay, and when you go for the first element, it will call this thing, and it will call this thing until you don't write a break statement. Okay, until this particular we don't have any break statement, or we are not stopping this particular iterator, it will iterate. Okay, now let's go ahead and write some logic here. So I can say if self dot current is greater than self dot end. Okay, if it is greater than this, then you can do one thing, you can raise stop iteration. You can directly stop this iteration. Okay, but we know like this condition will never come until we we'll write some logic to increment it. So let's write that particular logic here. So number equal to self dot current, and then below to this self dot current equal plus equal to 1. Okay. Now it will increment it and it will return the number here. Okay. Great. Now after this, if I will run this particular code, okay, so let's run it and see like what output it gives. So if I run this code now, it printed loop 5 times. So in place of that, I can print the number. Yep, I can print the number. So you see it printed the number, which means this call iterator function, and for every num, it is calling this next. Okay. Now point to be noted here, as soon as it comes inside this condition, inside the for loop, sorry. Okay, and if I say break, okay, if I say break, then it will not print anything here. It will print inside iterator, then it will print again that inside iterator, okay, and then it will come out of it. Suppose if I write something like this, if I explicitly call the next function for print next, okay, and then if inside it, if I will pass num, okay, nums underscore iterator. So I can say here nums underscore, not num, sorry, if I write num, okay, only this, okay. Now let's see what happens here. So you see, I'm getting int object is not an iterator. Okay, sorry, I have to pass not this. I have to pass this because this is an iterator. Okay. Now if I call this, you see it got printed. Now how it is working? What we did, it called the iterator. Okay. And for every number, it will call the next. But what we did in the first loop itself, as soon as it came inside, we broke. Now once we broke, it will start the second. So here we explicitly call that particular next to nums because nums has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now for 1, it already ran. Now when we explicitly said next num, then it will be starting from 2. Similar to that, let me run it again. Okay, now it is 2. Now if I run this particular operation again, then this time it will call 3 because the loop is running third time. Similar to this, we can run 3, 4, and 5. Let me do that quickly. 3, 4, 5. Okay. Let me remove this one. Okay, save and it ran. Now if I again write 1, then it will say like we don't have stop iteration raised because now after this we said if the current number is greater than the end, then you have to stop the iteration. It will throw the exception. So that's where it thrown the exception. So this is how the next and iteration works. But there is one more way where we can say number underscore iterator equals to call the iterator explicitly. Okay, call the iterator explicitly. We are not calling the loop here. Okay, so my number, I am again saying 1, 2, 3. Okay, not 5, 1, 2, 3. And then if I write here print, and I would say next, oh, sorry, next, and inside that next, if I pass number iterator, okay, then see what it will print. Let me remove this. I don't want to print anything. Clear this. And if I run this, you see it printed 1 because we have called iterator. Now iterator is having 1, 2, 3, and it will iterate 3 times. The first time we iterated here using this next. Now if I will again paste it, it's the same thing. Okay, now again 3. Now if I run the fourth time, it will throw the exception of iteration. Okay. So this is how this iteration and next comes in picture. So iteration comes in picture when you write this line, and for each and every item, it will call the underscore underscore next underscore underscore. Yep. So this is all we have for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found this video helpful and want to see more video on Python, or on AI, don't forget to like and click on notification bell icon to stay updated and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.